What is going on, everybody? I am your boy Retro Bliss, and you are on Retro Bliss Rewind. And we are going to be talking about the Sega Master System tonight. Yes, that's right, the Sega Master System. This is a topic that we have been wanting to talk about for the last few weeks, but we are finally getting to the topic. And before I get the rambling on, we're going to just bring the guests to the stage. We're going to have Mike from Mike's Gaming Gala, and we're going to have Brian from BD RetroMods.
Oh! Hey guys, how's it going? I came prepared.
Oh my gosh, man, he's ready to go. What do you got there, Brian?
Oh, I got my Master System Zapper, not Zapper, that's NES, light phaser. You know, got the good old control stick, and you know, got to have the 3D glasses with it.
Of course.
You know, those things work good.
They work really good.
They actually work.
So, I just want to make sure, because every time we've tried to do this, there's been something wrong. Phil, you're healthy?
I'm healthy.
Brian, you healthy? Everybody good?
So far, so good.
All right, it's actually Master System Day.
Oh, I just stubbed my toe.
Oh, no!
All right, well, you know, I've been trying to advertise this for like the last month.
The most hyped episode ever. It's had 3 weeks of promo.
I know, man. It's been crazy. And so we want to talk about the console. We want to talk about the games. We want to talk about the peripherals. And we want to talk about the homebrews. The homebrews are something that are kind of near and dear to me to an extent. But and obviously, you know, some of the officially released games. But, you know, you guys are more in the know about the peripherals and some of the things that came with the console back in the day. So I kind of would like to talk about some of that stuff. So you guys want to kind of jump in on that?
Yeah, I think Brian's got a history lesson for us.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have to enable that there, Phil?
I was going to ask you if I need to do that. Okay, let's go.
Oh, hey, this is our first time doing this. So.
Well, because we had so much time to prepare.
That's right. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I just tell me when I need to go. I guess I'm the one that's. Can you do it or can I?
Yeah, it looks like it'll let me do it. So,
okay, you do it.
So yeah, I mean, not going to spend a ton of time on this, but I just kind of felt it was important to kind of talk about some of the history behind it, because I think it's very interesting history that, you know, some may or may not know about. And so just to kind of get started, just if you're not aware, Sega first got into the home console market in 1983 with the Japanese-only releases of the SG-1000 and the SC-3000. The SG-1000 was heavily based on the ColecoVision, which is a whole interesting story there. We're not going to talk about that today, though, because that'll take forever. But the SC-3000, also known as the Sega Computer, was the home computer version of the SG-1000. Yeah, these systems were profitable for Sega, but they didn't have huge success due to the strong competition they were facing from the MSX and the Famicom at that time. So with that, Sega would then make a successor known as the Mark III that was a direct competitor to the Famicom in October of 1985. Unfortunately for Sega, the Mark III was not faring well for Sega in Japan, as the Famicom currently would hold 90% of the market at that time. And unfortunately, which we'll talk about here more later, that was due to Nintendo's third-party licensing policies that they had that was causing Sega to have a limited game library. I mean, in Japan, it was literally just them. I mean,
at the same time, that licensing agreement probably saved the video game industry.
Yep. It's debatable, but yes.
Sega. It hurt Sega, but what it did is it stabilized the industry.
It did. It did for sure. But because of that, Sega then decided they wanted to try to release it in North America in hopes that it would do better than it was doing, you know, in Japan. And with that, Sega of America was formed in 1986, and they were tasked with marketing a Western release of the Mark III. So similar to how the Famicom was redesigned as the Nintendo Entertainment System, you know, here in America, Sega of America would redesign the Mark III and release it as the Sega Master System, as we all know. And I'm not going to really dive on this part here. I mean, we're going to talk about it more after, but long story short, the Sega Master System, for all intents and purposes, was a much more powerful system than the NES on a number of levels. With that said, though, the NES would eventually make up for some of that technical shortfall by adding additional mapper chips in their video game cartridges. So, but again, much better system on paper when it came to specs.
As a base system, it was more powerful. That certainly doesn't tell the entire story, but it was definitely a more powerful system.
Yep. And the Sega Master System would be released in September of '86, but did not reach most retailers until October of '86. There were 2 versions available at launch, which I was able to luckily find some pictures on eBay of people having complete box of these original.
Oh, I could just show it. I could have gotten mine.
Oh, yeah. Well, crap. But you did have the base system bundle that was $139 at the time. Which again, to today's standards, $377. Or you could get the Master System bundle, which was $200. That came with 2 controllers, a light gun, and 2 games on 1 cartridge, which was Hang On and Safari Hunt. The controllers and light gun would be a similar approach to what we saw on the Nintendo. And it's just kind of crazy to think, because when people get upset of a PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X costed $500, I mean, you look at, what things cost back then. So
yeah. And the thing that I'll add to this, before we move off the console itself, is that both the Sega Master System and the Famicom, they are transitional systems, transitioning between the 2nd generation and the 3rd generation. Big example being in the 2nd generation, whether you're playing Atari, ColecoVision, and television, you've got short cables and you've got the console near you with a big long video cable to the television. And the reason being is because they're mostly arcade ports. If you're sitting down to play for 2 hours, you probably have 5 or 6 games that you're going to be swapping between. You play Pac-Man for 20 minutes, you play Space Invader for half an hour, and you play a whole pile of games. And so when you move to the next generation, you have that mindset with the consoles. So the Famicom has those really short hardwired controllers. And the Master System has a pause button right on the system itself, because it's still in that mentality that people are going to have the system right in front of you. But the games themselves, which we're going to move into, are becoming much more. So you could sit down and play 1 game for 2-3 hours, no problem. So that mentality doesn't really officially switch over until the North American version of the Famicom, which is a NES.
But then with the release of the Master System, 5 additional games would be available at launch, which are shown here: Choplifter, Fantasy Zone, World Grand Prix, Transbot, and Ghost House. And most games for the system would be on a cartridge, but it also used game cards for some, which was kind of more of their budget releases. Yeah, I don't know that exact number. Do you, Mike? I think it's like 6 games? Or is it?
It's about that. It's about 6 games, and they come on a little. Sometimes you're even lucky enough to get the sleeve that they came in, but they look like TurboGrafx games pretty much. They're little cards. And I will note that most versions of the Master System had a built-in game. The very first one was a little maze game, and then at one point they had Hang On, and they had, I forget what the name of the game is, but it was like a hunting game, zapper game.
Safari
Hunt.
Yeah, Safari Hunt, that's it.
Yeah. Actually, that was better than Duck Hunt.
I mean, in fairness, I can't speak objectively because I was not until '89, but I was a Nintendo kid, and I had so much fun with Duck Hunt. So I can't really.
That's not saying Duck Hunt's not a good game, but it's better than Duck Hunt.
I don't know, man. The dog and Duck Hunt, PTSD right there.
Yeah, but in a family with a bunch of brothers, you could play 2-player because one person could be the duck.
That's true.
That is true.
But no. So like I said, they came on game cartridges and the cards. The system would also eventually have an additional bundles throughout its lifespan, including the set with the 3D glasses, which I know someone mentioned. I'm not gonna, for its time, it's amazing how well the 3D works with those glasses and the because again it came in two pieces. Like I said, I jokingly had the glasses, but then this was the adapter that went into the card port that the glasses plugged into, and it's
so simple because the Vectrex had the exact same. So it was much bigger and clunkier, but it did the exact same thing. All it does is hide one eye at a time to match the frame rate that's showing one image at a time, and it's incredibly effective on a CRT.
Oh yeah, no, I have so much fun, and like I played a number of games with my son with it, and he had a blast with it too. So
yeah, it holds up. It does hold up.
Believe it or not, I have a distorted retina in my right eye, so my two eyes don't work together very well. So you wouldn't think that the 3D glasses would work very well for me, but actually, I can still use the 3D glasses for the Master System for some games.
Because it doesn't actually get you to use your eyes together. It's literally covering one, then cover the other. Yeah. So you're only ever using one eye at a time.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's very enjoyable to play. I haven't really sat down with all of the games, the 3D games that I have, but the 3D glasses do work. It's amazing.
Yeah. So Canvas, actually, we'll talk about our favorite Master System games here after this here at some point. But also on your thing with Choplifter, we were supposed to get an NES port. Tengen was going to be doing it, but it ended up getting canceled there after their lawsuit.
Well, you know what? Believe it or not, the Famicom has a Choplifter game. So I believe it was ported over in Japan, but it never came to America.
Yeah, no, Tengen was going to port it over, but then they never did because after like I said, the legal issues. But yeah, so unfortunately though, the Sega Master System was plagued with the same issues that the Atari 7800 had at this exact same time, because all three of these systems were out at this point. That Sega had issues distributing their products in stores, and Nintendo's third-party licensing policies came over from Japan and left them really with having to make games on their own for the most part. And by the end of 1986, you can see how many were only sold, compared to the NES and even the Atari 7800 at that point.
Are these North American numbers?
Yes, these are North American numbers.
Okay, because in Europe and South America, Sega actually was the bigger player.
Oh yeah, no, they kicked butt for sure.
Do you know how I got my Master System back then? I was a married man, and there was a JCPenney outlet store, and outlet stores generally don't carry anything unless they're discounting or whatever. And I was walking down the aisle, and there was actually a display right in the middle of the aisle there, and there was like a skid of them, and they were like deep discount.
Oh yeah,
and I thought,
right, and again with that, it's just because I said with that continued struggle of sales, Sega ultimately diverted their resources to the European launch of the system, which was a ton more successful, and with that sold the rights to the Master System to Tonka in 1987. Because they believed a toy company would be able to do a better job at marketing and distributing the Master System in North America.
And they were not the first or last video game company to foolishly think that.
Right. I mean, it's crazy. But obviously, Tonka failed to make an impact, though, and only gathered third-party support from Activision and Parker Brothers, which was owned by Tonka. So that's the reason why, at the end of the day, when it comes to the Master System, everything's either by Sega for the most part, Activision, or Parker Brothers. So, at least for the North American market of stuff.
But there were good games still.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yep.
There were still some good games. Go ahead.
Oh, you're good. Yep, we're almost
No.
done here.
No, you're
with
good.
yeah,
I'm
but
enjoying this. This is very entertaining.
Oh, thanks. But with the success of the Sega Genesis in 1990, Sega decided to buy the Master System rights back from Tonka. And with that, then they would go ahead and release a budget version of the Master System, obviously deemed the Sega Master System 2. That same year, production of the Master System would ultimately end, though, in North America in early 1992. And one thing to note with the Master System 2, it did have Alex Kidd in Miracle World in the system. So if you didn't plug a game in, you can turn it on and play it. I don't think the American market ever got Sonic on it. I know the PAL market eventually got a model with Sonic on it. I can't remember.
Oh, built in?
Yes.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know the PAL market did. I don't know that the North American market ever got that one. But
here's something for Operation Shutdown's drinking game. That version right there, that's something I don't have. I need that still.
It's again, it's
he
cool
always says how I have like everything, so I got to point out I don't have that. I've seen them. I've just balked at the price.
But then with that, the last commercial game released for the Master System in North America was Bubsy the Bobcat.
Complete BS.
Whoa, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. That's a different reality right there. That's my
I was
bad.
wondering when he was going to come in here.
My bad. my mistake, guys. The last commercial game released for the Master System in North America was Sonic the Hedgehog. There would be a total of 114 commercial games released within the North American lifespan of the Master System.
Which is only about half of the original games released. Europe got between Europe and Brazil, there's like 300 games.
Yes, there is. Because even though the Sega Master System was not successful in Japan and it really wasn't successful here, I mean, it was extremely successful in Europe, as you can see there with the approximate numbers sold. And then Brazil was even crazier than that. In Europe, Master System was actually the top-selling console until 1990 and was produced until 1996, which is crazy when you think about it, because 1996, you're now talking PlayStation era, and here they go still making Master Systems.
Well, and in Brazil, it was manufactured even longer.
Right, yeah.
Under Tectoy.
Yep.
Under
because
Tectoy.
and you're right, because there was 269 commercial games. There seems to be some debate on that, but it seemed like most people, the consensus was 269 commercial games released in Europe. But what's good though is all those games are playable on a North American console. So,
yes.
and a lot of times they're a lot cheaper than the North American versions of
because they're more plentiful.
Yes. And then to what Phil mentioned, Tectoy began the distribution of the Master System in 1989, and they had a huge number of variations of it. I mean, because it was just such a popular system there. And even to today, you can technically go on Tectoy's website, and they still make plug and play Master System for the Brazilian market. So.
Still buy them.
Yep. But with that was our quick, brief history. I hope everyone enjoyed that.
That was amazing. I enjoyed that.
Great.
Actually, you did some
That
homework.
is the most structured this podcast has ever been.
You're right.
Yeah, maybe we need to have him do a podcast and just watch his.
That was the most structured and professional thing we've ever done on this channel. Let's never do it again.
But no, I mean, honestly, that was great. Now, but be that as it may, they fell behind NES and had issues. But, I remember when I did get that, it was at a discount. I can't remember what it was. I would think it was cheap. It was like $69 or $79 on a skid walking by, and I'm like, I don't know what this is, but it's got a light gun and a couple controllers, and, I'm getting it.
Sexy white grid.
Yeah. Well, I was a gamer, and it looked better than the Atari that I had given away. So I thought I'm going to get it. So I went to KB Toys at the mall and picked up some extra games. It had Alex Kidd with it. Or no, it didn't. It didn't have Alex Kidd. It had Hang On. I think it had Hang On with it. I can't remember.
You mean built in?
No, it was
Oh,
included.
just came with.
Yeah,
Hang On was one of their big early
yeah.
releases.
So
They
anyway,
struggled. They struggled to find any kind of mascot. Alex Kidd never really did it. They
no.
tried. They tried the Alex Kidd thing, and it wasn't until Sonic, and that was really Genesis time. But that's when they really found Sega found their path.
So I want to talk about my favorite games that I liked. I remember one of the early games. There were a couple Zillion. I loved Zillion, and specifically Zillion 2. And I remember, there were no save features. You did have a pause button, but there was no save feature. And I remember getting to the boss a number of times. I could never beat the boss, and I was so mad.
And you tried a zillion times.
I tried a zillion. But man, that game was so good, and the graphics and the colors just was so amazing to me. I just could not believe, and the gameplay was just so great in that game. I love that game, and to this day, but I don't have the time and the patience to really sit down with that game anymore because I just have so many other games that I play now, and it's
mentioning the colors. You really see the ColecoVision legacy. Like the color palette that it uses is so ColecoVision. And actually, when I was younger, a friend of mine had a Master System. I didn't. I was never a big fan of that palette because it seemed more cartoony to me. But I look at it now, and it's just so much more vibrant and so it pops so much. It's really good for a lot of the games that they did have.
Yeah, Philip was right. Yeah, it came with Safari Hunt too. It came with that dual game cartridge. Yeah. But yeah,
hey,
Zillion
Phillips,
was one.
And not to interrupt, but I'm catching up on the chats over here. We got a Bubsy fan over here in the chat.
Yeah, I put that on the thing. He was talking about the Genesis. He likes the Genesis version.
Mike loves it.
Yeah.
I have nothing against Bubsy. I just think if Atari is like Bubsy's our mascot, Atari's in trouble.
Well,
we'll just have him drinking G Fuel. It's all good.
There you go.
I think they were drinking G Fuel when they bought it.
Out of an Atari joystick tumbler.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Let's see what other games.
But I mean, I think an important thing, because then we'll kind of also then talk about our favorites, because I think we all have a number of favorites and peripherals we want to show and stuff. But one thing I do want to maybe just hit on for a couple minutes, and we kind of did, is again, without a doubt, when you put a Master System game next to a NES version of the same game, I mean, again, that color palette is so much better. And
I would not say better, but definitely more vibrant.
Yeah.
There are certain games, there are actually a lot of games that I think the NES palette works way better than a Master System palette. But you cannot deny the Master System A has more colors, but B has more vibrant colors.
Well, one game that actually is better as far as I think like the sprites and everything being on the screen and the colors is Double Dragon.
Master System Double Dragon is superior to.
Yeah, that one is
NES
superior. But I think you are right as a general rule. And Paperboy is the same way too. But anyway.
But with that though, just I mean, and I know Mike kind of hit on it a little and again, I don't want to, because it could be a whole podcast in itself. It's just, the whole thing of Nintendo's practice is just, it would be really interesting. I don't disagree that helped stabilize things, because again, prior to that, there's no denying it. It was
the Wild West prior to that.
There's a Wild West of hot garbage out there. And they knew they had to do something to not have that happen again, or it wasn't going to work. But the way it just, pretty much stifled the competition is
it went right to dictatorship as opposed to something in between. Yeah.
Right. Because again, I mean, same with Atari 7800, in the sense that spec wise, now again, you put a 7800 game to an NES game, many times the NES game is going to look better, but but spec wise, it had
And it'll always sound better.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, because the backward compatibility part of that's bad. But again, it's kind of disappointing because I really would have loved to have seen what the Master System could have been without that.
Yeah.
I mean, and we did kind of see that in Europe because Europe, it didn't have that issue. So
yeah. And even if you don't like the Master System, like I've seen some comments, it's like, oh, here Master System was associated with cheap games and cheap controls. But then he said, but then later I tried it and it wasn't as bad as anybody said it was. But the one thing, whether you're a Nintendo fan or a Sega fan, and they pushed each other, so that next generation was just primo stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like those systems for the time were absolutely primo. They were competitively priced. They had great games. And that would not have happened if it hadn't been for that competition. And particularly Sega coming out with the Genesis early in '89.
Oh, that one, yeah.
And just kind of pushing. It's like, no, you can't rest on your laurels. You got to come out with something more.
That was the war right there. Mr. Postal mentioned another game that Master System was definitely superior to Rampage.
Actually, that was one of the ones I had ready to show because it's like, yeah, this is by far the best version for that time period. I mean, without a doubt.
Better than the arcade?
Well, for home
the best
console. Best port. Yep.
I don't know. I'm partial to my Rampage on the 2600. I don't know if you saw my mini review.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know that thing's playable. I mean, I have played it.
It actually, you know what? Okay, listen, it's not the best port of Rampage, but it's decent. If you had nothing else, it's a good version of Rampage. And you can play as you can play as all three characters.
So I guess what was your first experience with the Master System, Mike? Because I know Phil kind of mentioned, he found it kind of on a pallet there and, bought it. And
my experience from back in the day was, so the first time I ever played Master System wasn't until it was already old gen. Mm-hmm. So it was it's like during the Super Nintendo Genesis time. And a friend of mine had one, and it was the only system that he had. It was never plugged in. But whenever I went over there, and that was my first experience on the Master System. He was like, oh, we've got this. It's like, oh, Sega had a system before the Genesis? Okay, let's try it. He plugged it in, and I played that little maze game, and then he had Hang On, and I played some of that. I was like, oh, it's pretty good, and didn't play much of it again until I was older, and I started collecting, and that's when I started getting in. I'm like, well, the Master System was actually pretty good. I mean, the controller, inferior to the NES. I don't think anybody will deny that.
It's mushy, man. It's just so mushy.
It's mushy. There's, only the two buttons. Genesis, like everybody talks about, Genesis was next level. The controller that the Genesis launched with had the same amount of buttons as the NES controller. But fully functional. Like this one, I've got one that has a little nub in the middle. But obviously, nobody likes playing with that little nub. But it does the job. It's not bad. But the games themselves and the system, how it plays the games, it's endearing. But I never got to play it first gen. So it wasn't like, I'm playing Super Mario Brothers at home and then I go play something on the Master System, be like, whoa, this is so much better. I never had that experience, unfortunately. And honestly, at that point in time, I'm not sure I would have had that reaction. Simply because of that color palette, as vibrant as it is, I remember thinking how cartoony and kidsy it looked like when I first played it. And it was later in my life that I gained more of an appreciation for it.
And that's really the same it was for me. I mean, I never even knew of a Master System for a long, long time. And it wasn't until, really about probably 6 years ago, 6.5 now, it all blurs anymore. But I was heavily into Magic the Gathering at the time. So I went to a card shop to really find some specific Magic cards I was looking for, and they had the Master System 3D glasses set, like everything with it, 2 games, and it was like, is that for sale? And they're like, yeah, and it's like, huh, how much do you want for it? Because there was no price on it, and they're just like, you go with $50? I'm like, yep.
Wow.
So because again,
I picked up my completed box set for like $80 Canadian, so I can't complain too much.
Yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, I was like, yeah, I'll do, because again, I mean, someone apparently traded it in to get cards, and that's not really what they would sell, so they just kind of wanted to get rid of it. So so I got it, didn't really mess with it much, but then during the COVID era, with everything with lockdowns and stuff, then I started to play it a lot more and appreciate it a lot more, and with that, honestly, it's what made me start doing the BD RetroMods stuff, because to your point, I did not enjoy the controllers, and we're going to talk about all these controllers, but when you see them, you might kind of understand why. I mean, especially if you were growing up on an NES and you try to go to these, they're not horrible, but they're not great either, and they'll get the job done, but it's not a good experience, and that's where I started then making controllers for it, and then it just all blew up from there. But go ahead.
Oh no, you can wrap up.
Oh no, so I mean, it's just and that's why the Master System has such a strong place for me, because not just the fact that it's such an underappreciated system, but I mean, it's what started me down the path that I'm doing now. So
yeah, for sure. Why don't we move in, because we've already kind of talked to games, why don't we move into some of our favorites? And maybe what we can do is we can do I got 4 here. Mm-hmm. Maybe we can Phil, you can do one, then I'll do one, then Brian will rotate.
Yep.
Okay, I didn't bring any physical into but I'll tell you.
Come on, man, it's your podcast.
I know, but
I mean,
a lot of you guys probably know.
Gigantic shelf of all those box games, and you didn't
No, the aliens behind them stole it.
Okay, all right. I'll start. I'll just tell you one of the ones I played a whole lot of was Shinobi. I loved Shinobi. I played the heck out of that, man. I loved Shinobi back in the day. That was one of my favorites. So
Shinobi's a good game. I've never been able to really get into it. I play it and I'm like, I know this is a good game. I can tell it's a good game. Why am I not? I just could never get into it.
Yeah, but
what is it about Shinobi that you really like?
It just just the variations. You're going from level to level, and then you have, you got the ninja stars there, where the level, and then you have the bosses, and it's just the variations, and just learning the patterns.
It's easier than Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah, it is that for sure.
I'll go next. One of my favorites is Montezuma's Revenge. I love this game on any system. The only thing that I'm not a big fan of, and there's actually 2 games on this list of mine that are missing this, and a lot of Master System games, I really like them, but they feel like they're missing just one little thing that could make it great, and this is missing music during gameplay. Just give me some music. But the game itself, it plays, it looks great. It's probably my favorite version of Montezuma's Revenge. And so that was the first one that I picked. And Parker Brothers.
Yep.
Well, I got to show this one, at least so my work didn't go in vain. So just in case we weren't going to do the presentation, I actually had a box copy ready of Bubsy the Bobcat.
Oh, I want one.
Oh my gosh.
Man,
we can count on you, Brian. I'm telling you what. How are you going to work
that
in
so I can make one?
Yeah.
If we have an interview with somebody, how are you going to work Bubsy in? That's what I want to know.
I'll find a way.
Okay.
But so yeah, I mean, I got a bunch here, but one that I really like because it's such a good job with it is R-Type.
I love
great
art.
game.
I mean, R-Type.
Oh, one of my
I
favorites.
mean, I cannot believe how well for an 8-bit system they were able to port this over. I mean, it's a really good port of this game.
Yeah. You're making me reconsider my list. I grabbed like personal favorites, not necessarily the best games on the system, but just like for whatever reason, I really like these ones. But R-Type absolutely belongs on anybody's list. It's a great game.
Man, there's so many that I like. Well, you know, I go with my favorites with nostalgia, and nostalgia is what the ones, you know, like I said, I went to KB Toys and I kind of picked, I probably only had maybe 15 titles back in the day. And I don't even remember what I did with my original system and with my games. I don't know what I did with them. I really don't. But I had oh man, Afterburner. I liked Afterburner. I did. I liked it. I thought it was a pretty decent port for the Master System.
Oh, it's absolutely a fantastic port. I don't even like the Afterburner arcade though.
I liked it.
And Top Gun, I've always hated those.
Yeah, but I like shooters, and I liked it. So
yeah, no, it's again on an 8-bit system. The fact that like that and Space Harrier and games like that, just the fact that it runs on the Master System at all.
Yeah, I had that one too. That was one of my next ones too. But that's okay.
I mean, well, I could name a few more that've been named in the chat. I'm not even going to say how great Road Rash is. Okay. 007, The Duel, James Bond. I am a massive movie guy. I went to film school. I work in film and television ever since I was a little kid. It's been Back to the Future, Ghostbusters, Star Wars, Star Trek, and James Bond. James Bond is my dad's favorite. I knew James Bond before I knew Santa Claus. That's how big a fan my dad is. It's not the best game in the world. For the 8-bit era, I think it's the best James Bond game. And of course, you got Timothy Dalton there. And you get to fight Jaws. You fight like all these different characters from the history of the Bond franchise. Again, it's missing music, but it's kind of a platformer, wander the level till you find the end. And then every 4 levels, it's a boss fight. Game that I like a lot.
All right, Brian.
Oh man, which one? I think we'll do this one next. So, Sega, especially 16-bit times, were so well known for their Disney games and how well they did them. And
they did really good with those.
And the thing is that a lot of people don't realize they ported a lot of that stuff also to the Master System and had those games, and they were just as good. And one that I like. Obviously there's Castle of Illusion, which is good, but I do really like the Lucky Dime Caper Donald Duck. I think they did really well with that game and with all their Disney games, and you can't go wrong with any of the Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck games for the Master System.
I would agree with that.
Well, you guys don't laugh. I liked Fantasy Zone.
Oh yeah.
What's wrong with Fantasy? Why would we laugh at that?
I loved it. I did.
I had it here as one of my picks. So
yes,
I
it's a fantastic game.
I loved it.
It is a fantastic game.
Yeah, it was great, man. I played that to death, man. It was great. That was great, man. The colors, I never played it in the arcade. As a matter of fact, I don't even remember it ever being an arcade game until later on. But I just remember playing the game and just loving it. It just,
It's a really fun little, but again, as a kid, that's the type of game that I would look at and say, oh, this is a kid's system. Why would I ever want to play that. But you play it now, and it's just like, this is brilliant.
It is.
No, Cloudmaster's definitely a good one too.
Yeah, Cloudmaster's
sure.
a classic, man. It's awesome.
So here's one that's completely different. I was a big fan of this game series when I was younger, and as an adult, because I had never got a chance to play it as a kid, but as an adult, when I found out that there was a version for the Master System, I got it. It isn't the best version of King's Quest that I've ever played, but it's solid. It looks good. It sounds good.
I've never played that.
It's kind of a point and click kind of game, like all of the King's Quest games are. So they do work better on a computer when you've got a mouse and you can kind of do that. But they did actually a really good job of this one. And like I said, it looks good and it plays good. I'm a big fan of King's Quest, and I still pop it in every once in a while.
Excellent.
Oh man, I gotta only get to choose a couple more.
I've only got one more.
Okay. Well, I think I'll do this one next. That again, this is probably toward the end of the, at least for North American release, and I know it gets a lot of criticism for being a Zelda clone, but
I know what it is.
but Golden Axe Warrior is a really well done game.
It's a good Zelda clone.
It
is.
I mean, it's very colorful. It's fun to play. Now, obviously, it doesn't play like any other Golden Axe game, but it is a very fun game.
Yeah.
Well, I started it, so I guess you ended it.
Well, I've got one more.
Okay, you want me? I got one more.
Yeah, you need one more. You could just say Space Harrier. We all knew it.
Okay, no. Well, that is one, but you already said it, so we didn't say Double Dragon. I love Double Dragon. I played that a lot too. I loved that game back in the day.
Definitely the superior version.
Yeah, it's the best version of the 8-bit, so I love that.
Okay. My last one. So again, as a movie guy, I actually made myself, because this was a transformative film for me. I was the perfect age. It made me want to get into movies. It wanted to do that. And so I actually have myself a Jurassic Park Jeep. I drive a giant Hot Wheel in the summer. And so it's Jurassic Park on the Master System.
Okay.
It's a weird game. It's got like, the first level starts, you're like driving the Jeep across, and it's like you're a little target and you're just shooting dinosaurs that are trying to attack your Jeep. But then it's a platformer, and then it's got all these different, and it's got like a boss fight with the Triceratops that it shows on the back here and all that. But what really, really makes me love this, and one of the big things that made me love the Genesis Jurassic Park, even though it was a far inferior game to the Super Nintendo one, was that opening cutscene. It just set all that mood. And this has like 3 minutes of opening cutscene on the Master System. Like you're the helicopter flying to the island, and then like this spotlight, and then it's kind of like just images, but like the dinosaurs attacking you and all that stuff just sets the tone so well. And then you play something that is honestly, like, it's not a bad game, but it's not a great game. It's kind of in the middle there. But partially because of my loving the source material, and then the other part of just like them setting the tone so well, Jurassic Park's on my list.
Well, Matt's asked a question about the sports games. And I'm going to be real honest with Matt right now. Matt's J. I'm not a fan of I'm a fan of sports games. Don't get me wrong. I do like my sports games, but I'm not a big fan of the Sega Master System sports games. And I've only played a few of the ones that I have played. The ones I have played, I'm not a fan of, I should say. The ones that I have played are like great baseball, basketball, great football. They're just not good, in my opinion. What do you guys think?
There is one sport to rule them all, and that is hockey. As
Oh,
a Canadian, I could say that with authority. And there is one hockey game on the Master System that's actually good, and it uses the Sega Sports Pad. But if
okay.
you don't have this, you cannot play it. There you go. That right down there.
Okay.
Fun fact. Hold that up again, Brian.
Yep.
Fun fact. That trackball you can plug into your Atari 2600 and it works as a trackball.
Oh, that is awesome. I got to get me one of those. Well, since we're talking about controllers, let me lead into that, okay?
Sorry, Brian, did you have one more game?
I did.
Or no?
I'm gonna
Okay.
actually cheat and throw two up. So Ninja Gaiden for the Master System, very very good game, and it is when you look at the graphics of this one compared to the NES, they did a real good job with it, and I think it's a fun one to play. But then again, another really good arcade port that you didn't see on the NES. And again, I highly recommend giving that one a shot too. It's a lot of fun.
Okay. All right. Well,
Now you can do your thing.
all right, let's get into the controllers. Well, the reason why I want to lead into it is that Brian and I met because of the Sega Master System. A lot of people may not know that. A couple years ago, we live in Ohio, and the Korg's Gaming Convention in Ohio is in Columbus, and I drove up there, and I was looking for I wasn't actually looking for one, but I walked up to Brian makes controllers, BD RetroMods. He has a number of great controllers, which, by the way, if you look in the link in the description of this video, check out his Facebook and his website. He's got a bunch of really good stuff, but be that as it may, I walked up to his table and he had a plethora of all these controllers, and I had just gotten a Sega Master System, and as we talked about earlier in the program, the mushy controllers that I had, they just weren't working really good, and he had this 2-button controller there that he had made, and you have one there, Brian?
Yeah, so I have the standard like arcade style stick that I do,
Yeah.
but then like what Phil's talking about, I do NES style modded.
Yeah, I have
either in dog bone or regular style.
I have two of the dog bones now, but I didn't buy that then. I bought one of the arcade 2-button ones at the time, but that's how we initially met.
The arcade. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I bought at the time. But yeah, so that's where it all began. And now I think I have to put an addition onto the house to store all.
And by you needing to put on an addition to your house to store them, you give Brian the funds to create an addition on his house to make more of them.
That's right.
I know. And I've been sleeping on the couch for 2 years.
At least one of his kids through college.
So you guys got all the peripherals. I want you guys to be doing the talking from here on for a while.
He's going to have to do most of the show and tell. I actually, like I was saying in the backstage, I got my light gun out 3 weeks ago to show it, and it's somewhere now in this mess. And I can't find my 3D glasses, but he's got us covered. I brought the box for the sports pad.
Yeah, so I mean,
which only works for like 2 games.
Yeah, it's that hockey one, and then there's a
soccer one,
sport pad football. Yeah, and then is there a soccer one too?
I think there's so maybe there's 3 games.
So maybe there's 3 games. Yep. But yeah, like I know. Obviously, you have the original controller, and I think there's at least that I know of 3 variations of it. So I got 2 of them here, but like you had the starter that. Let me see here. So, like it has the little nub there in the middle, but then they also had a version, I think, prior to this where they had like a little tiny mini joystick that you would screw into that center. And did you? Again,
vestige. I have one. It's in a box.
Gotcha. No, it's all good. So you had.
But yeah, it's really, really small, but it's again that vestigial organ where it's like, oh, I'm using a joystick.
Yeah.
Right. And then eventually they got rid of the little nub in the middle and just kind of went with a
Yeah.
flatter look. So
That's this one.
yep. So I mean, you have those, and again, they're okay, but like we already mentioned, it's really mushy, and especially
They're
when you're trying to,
functional, and that's about it.
yeah, and then when you're trying to hit angles and stuff with them, it's not nearly as responsive as the NES style. But then Mike mentioned the light phaser, so
Bonus points to them. It's the cooler looking light gun. It's the better named light gun. I love the fact that they use phaser as a Star Trek fan. But it's the worst light gun. It doesn't feel as good. It feels light and cheap, and it doesn't have that satisfying cling when you hit the button.
it's actually funny you say that, because I was going to say the one thing I actually do like about this is the fact
Is
that
it doesn't make the noise?
I mean,
Yeah.
I think you can kind of hear it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a much more settle instead of that like obvious spring that's clinging on the zapper gun on the NES. So.
Maybe it's just nostalgia talking, but that thing that was like quality to me.
See, a real in Ohio when we shoot, we want that just a hair trigger. You know what I mean? That's what we want.
Neither have a
I don't know what you guys do
trigger.
in Canada, but we want that hair trigger over here. That's what we do.
I'll have you
That's
know
how we
that
roll.
I am one of those rare breed of Canadian firearms owners.
Oh, okay.
So I know what I'm talking about.
All right.
But then another interesting one, and I apologize for the dirtiness of it, because I ended up getting this in a lot, because one of the things I've done like kind of over the last year is I try to get a hold of PAL systems, especially the Master System 2, and then modify them to be NTSC machines, and you know, put the S-Video composite to them. But I don't
Drilling
know that,
holes, are we, Brian?
not all the time.
Operation Shutdown, take a shot.
It more depends on what the person wants, but usually I try to just go through the RF port there and have it the wire hang out for it if I can. But I came across this controller that came with one of them, and I honestly didn't know I was getting it, and I don't think this controller ever existed in the US. I could be wrong. If so, someone correct me in the chat. But it was a control pad by Honeybee for the Master System, and you can kind of see it's pretty wore, but it used an actual NES type D-pad, and it had turbo switches up here, kind of like the old TurboGrafx 16, you know, for auto fire and if it can focus there. There we go.
Keep talking. I'll be right back.
Yep.
Very nice. I like that.
I mean, so I was kind of neat because I didn't even know something like that existed.
I could use that for Astro Warrior to get through that game. That game's hard, man. That game kills me, man. I have a hard time to get through the first boss on that game.
But then, where did I put it? Because I got so much Master System stuff here tonight. But then, you know, the controller that I probably just despise the most is the Sega Control Stick. Which,
that's horrible.
You know, I guess I got to give them effort for trying, I guess.
It looks so cool and it plays so badly.
Yeah, it's horrible. This is nowhere near an NES advantage, just FYI. And again, they kind of went with the old Atari style, having the joystick on the right-hand side, you know, designed for a right-hander.
Biggest mistake right there.
Right. And then this, you know, just the top that's on it is just... It's so bad for playing. I mean, it might be okay if you're acting like you're shifting for Outrun or doing something with Afterburner, maybe. But overall, this thing's just, it's horrible.
Poorly executed.
Hey,
I found it while I was grabbing the other thing.
Oh, nice.
This is an aftermarket one, but they're pretty common. The Quick Shot.
Oh, that's cool.
So and what this one doesn't have the stick. Oh yeah, it has a sticker on it. But you could use it for your Atari 7800. You could use it. Is this going to focus? No, because it's got my face here. Your Commodore, your Amiga. Come on. Oh, well, that sticker there. It says Commodore, Amiga. And what you would do is you would switch it from A, B, C, D. But Master System's one of them. And you had on the bottom, you could switch it from off to auto fire. And then you had the two buttons and your D-pad with, again, that little screw hole if you wanted to insert the little thumbstick thing. So that's another accessory. I've got a few of these actually, and this centerpiece here actually clips off.
For what purpose?
I've never understood why. It's got like a little circuit board there, but yeah, it's called the Whiz Master. Hey, Scott.
Okay.
Oh, and it's got little suction cups on the back if you want to like screw in the little thumbstick and then stick it on your table and pretend like it's an actual joystick.
Nice.
It's not a great controller, but it's a great idea.
I was gonna say that D-pad looks pretty bad.
Yeah, the D-pad isn't great.
Yeah.
But again, we kind of touched on both of these ones already too, though. But obviously, you had the 3D glasses,
Yes.
and again, nothing rivals it for its time. I mean, on the NES, you had the simple old school blue-red 3D glasses. I mean, this thing blows that way out of the water. So,
And
that was
way
one of the
lighter
coolest
than the
peripherals that you can find on the system for sure. But and then we had
lighter and way cheaper than the Vectrex one.
Yes. And then of course we already just showed it too. But then of course you had the Sega Sports Pad, which was only with a couple games. And I'm trying to think. I don't know that they really had any other peripherals, did they?
I can't think of any off the top of my head.
I think we covered at least the major ones. I mean, there might be some obscure thing we're not aware of, but
yeah, for sure.
But I think those were the core items, which it looks like Cannabis mentioned. Too bad they didn't do a power pad. I'm actually kind of surprised they didn't, but I think at that point in time, I think they were just in a financial situation because, again, as much as we talk about how great it is, Sega a lot of the time did like the clone popular games, from the NES. So
yeah, and they cloned a lot of peripherals. Like that joystick. I actually looked it up when I first found it. It came out 6 months after the NES Advantage came out.
Mm-hmm.
The light gun, that's right from the NES. Like all this stuff and the powers. So they were probably looking. They're like, okay, NES has a robot. That's not doing very well. They've only got like 1 or 2 games that it works with. We're not going to copy that one. The power pad, I loved the power pad as a kid, but really, there's 4 or 5 games that you could use with it, and it never really took off. Lots of people had them, but they would just sit in the corner of the living room. No, so why sink money into copying that?
Right. No, I mean it was a fun little showpiece for a while, but. Yeah, I would never use a power pad today. Good God, no.
I would.
If I do, I'd be like on the ground, just going like this with my hand.
My brothers and I mastered the art of like you don't lift your feet, you keep your toes down, but your heels do the and we got really, really good at that.
Wow. All right, guys. Well, we're getting close to an hour, and we haven't talked about homebrews.
Homebrews.
I do want to talk about homebrews. So, what I'm going to do, I do want to talk about some homebrews. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play some snippets of some homebrews, and just tell you, there's only 4 of them, and then I'm going to tell you about where you guys can get some homebrews for the Sega Master System and how you can play them through emulation. There are ways you can actually buy them, but I can't tell you right now because Benji hasn't got back with me. There are ways now. I'll talk about that here in a minute, but let's go ahead and play a little bit of this video here. Hold on a second. I gotta get here. So this is Alex Kidd in Miracle World 2. Just a little bit of. I'll turn the volume down a little bit. Is it too loud?
I don't.
No, there's no sound.
You can't hear anything?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
It's like when I played that intro, and then I watched the stream back later, and it's like, there's no audio.
I don't know why there's no sound, but anyway. So anyway, He's not playing a whole lot here. I got it spliced here.
Yeah.
Just hang on. He's gonna.
I'm just adding music. It's
Okay.
not the right
Da,
game,
da,
but
da,
it's
da,
music.
da, da, da. It's basically the same music as Alex Kidd in Miracle World, but this is a this was made over in France, and it's a big deal over there. And I'm gonna kind of speed this up a little bit. Okay, now this is Alex Kidd in Miracle World and the Curse in Miracle
Curse
World.
in Miracle World.
Yeah, and so the graphics are really good in this game. Now, for whatever reason, the buttons are reversed, like the jump and the shooting is reversed.
Oh, that was true with every Alex Kidd game, and anybody who grew up playing Mario is likely to hate Alex Kidd games.
Yeah. So this is Galactic Boogers, and it's really kind of a cool game. I'm just gonna kind of go through it here in a minute. You have to learn to do things in the game, and then I'm gonna fast forward because it's taking some time. And this is The Legend of Aliv. And it's the same engine as Alex Kidd Miracle World, and it's the same sounds and everything. But I am going to let this one play. It's very fun. I didn't play it very well to get the game capture, but it's very fun. I'm going to fast forward here a little bit.
Do 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 do.
It's an adventure game. You go there. It's very fun, and so there's a website called smspower.org, and you guys can go to that website and well, let me add it to the stage here, and you can download a bunch of homebrews for the Sega Master System on this website. It's really cool. I've got quite a few.
There's a few other sites. I've got something between 200 and 300 Master System homebrews.
Yeah, I've got a ton of them.
Barely played any of them. They're all ROMs. I don't have any physical ones.
Yeah, you can buy them. You can buy them. I will try to do some homework to figure out how you can, but
it's all through Facebook messaging and stuff like that.
Yeah,
right now.
It's sporadic too, because sometimes they're available and sometimes they're not. So it's very difficult to get a handle on that. But
there are definitely some good homebrews out there.
Yeah, and I've got a lot, and Brian knows this for sure. What I do is I have a backbit. Now, backbit is a multi-cart which you can put adapters on there for different consoles. I have one for the Sega Master System, for the 7800, for the ColecoVision, so forth, in television. And you put all your ROMs on an SD card, and so I just put all my homebrews on that SD card, and I can play them on my Master System. So it's kind of a cool thing.
Can I show off?
Yeah.
I put them on an SD card on this.
Oh, what is that?
That's the analog FPGA system, but you put a little SD card in there with all your ROMs on it, and you're playing Genesis, Master System, and Game Gear in HD.
Very nice.
Beautiful.
Very nice, very nice. All right, well, I think that was a very successful podcast. I learned a lot from you guys. I learned a lot.
One more thing I just want to mention to it before we just wrap up, just so people understand too, is just, and maybe everyone already knows this, is just when it comes to Sega Master System games, you don't have to get a Sega Master System per se. Kind of what like Mike mentioned, like showed with the Mega SG, but they do make aftermarket converters to where you can plug into a Sega Genesis. And one thing is Rondo Products looks like they actually got the Power Base Mini FM models back in stock because those have been out of stock for a long time. And that's a good way to play it because most everyone has a Sega Genesis.
Bill, don't leave yet. Let him talk. Don't leave yet.
Okay, all right.
But
he's probably going to get the Power Base converter to show everybody.
Hey, that works.
Yeah, so, I meant to get that.
Yeah, so I mean, I highly recommend it, and definitely fork the little extra for the FM because that's actually a cool feature that was only available in Japan on their consoles, and for us, they didn't put that in. But it's like Sega Genesis style music with Master System games, and not all of them, but just specific ones, and it's worth the upcharge for it if you can get it. But
right.
And again, or if you have something like an EverDrive, you can just plug that into your Genesis as well and play Master System games.
Oh yeah.
And if you have a Master System controller, you can plug it into your Sega Genesis and use it just fine as well. So
yeah, because as soon as he mentioned that, I was like, oh, there is definitely one accessory that is technically a Genesis accessory, but it's for Master System.
You got the original Power Base converter?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a Power Base converter. So you open the top there, cartridges, card slot, pause button.
I forgot about that too. I've got one of those.
Clips onto your Genesis, and you can play Master System games on your Genesis.
Very nice. Yep. Yeah, you can play Master System all day, baby.
You can.
Yeah, I got me a Mega Drive for Christmas too. So I can play that way as well. So, all right, guys. You know what? I really appreciate you guys being part of the podcast. You guys really make it for me and for the audience. So, all you guys out there who are watching, I appreciate all you guys too. And so, hopefully, if everything goes well, we'll be here next week. And not exactly sure what we're going to be talking about yet. We have an idea, but we can't divulge it yet. So hopefully, if things go well and everybody's healthy and we don't have any hiccups or any problems, we will be here next week. So with that, you guys have an awesome day, and we'll see you next time on Retro Bliss Rewind. Take care. Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Bye.